That's a
Hello.
book.
That is a book.
What's the book?
For the Throne. We finished it.
We
It's
did.
done. The duology.
We did it. We got through Hannah Whiten's series.
I actually didn't. I mean, I assumed, but I didn't know the name of the duology was the Wilderwood. Or I say Wilderwood. I'm sure it's
I say
Wilderwood.
Wilderwood too. Or do I say Wilderwood? I'm pretty sure I say Wilderwood.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know.
But yeah, so for the Throne, it's done. Duology's done. How do we feel?
Do we want to read the synopsis?
Yeah, let's read
I
this.
got it pulled up. Okay.
For the people.
The
Okay,
first daughter
go for
is
it.
for the throne. The second daughter is for the wolf. Red and Wolf have finally contained the threat of the old kings, but at a steep cost. Red's beloved sister Neve, the first daughter, is lost in the Shadowlands, an inverted kingdom where the vicious gods of legend have been trapped for centuries, and the old kings have slowly been gaining control. But Neve has an ally, though it's one she'd rather never have to speak again, the rogue king Solmir. Solmir wants to bring an end to the Shadowlands, and he believes helping Neve may be the key to its destruction. But to do that, they'll both have to journey across a dangerous landscape in order to find a mysterious heart tree, and
Big
finally,
spook.
to claim the god's dark, twisted power for themselves. Ba-da-bam. How'd you feel?
I felt, if I'm going to be honest, a little bummed. A little bummed. Did I enjoy myself? Kinda. Kinda is what I'm going to say there. What about you? How are you feeling at the end?
I think I liked the ending progression for the throne more than for the wolf. I think I liked the last 20% of. I'm not necessarily saying the ending itself. I think I liked the ending action of the Shadowlands more than the ending action of the Wilderwood.
Yeah, I can agree there.
It was slightly more magical and more like dark gritty fantasy, but ultimately I was sad. I wanted more from this duology. I wanted more world building, more character development, more magic, more explanations. In the end, I thought that it was like I am writing a book about this idea that I vaguely have a plan for, and we're going to get there, but I'm not really sure how we're going to get there. And then, oh look, we're here. It's ending.
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited going into the series because I'm like something new, something different, and I like a good duology. I mean, I thought we had some substance here with our even with a synopsis. I'm like, all right, bet, let's go, let's make it happen. And we started, and I felt like we kind of just stayed at like, yeah, let's call it 50% effort. 50% effort. We were up, and then we plateaued, and we stayed there.
Yeah. There's
So
some things I gave the first book a pass on that I didn't give this book a pass on, but we can get into that. We can tell the loyal RSQ fans why that is.
let's get into it. We are the factory.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Can we say that? Is that copyright? We'll be fine.
Copyright.
All right, let's kick it off with our favorite category in the RSQ rubric here. Dakota, tell us about the character development.
I started my notes on character development with Blarg.
Blarg.
I wrote Blarg in my notes for character development. It suffers from the same problem as book one, in that it doesn't give the cast of characters enough meaningful moments to have well-rounded character development. It gives you a cast of characters. It gives you characters that could potentially be interesting, and then it does it. Character development was abysmally underdone for everyone that wasn't Neve and Solmir. Maybe that's, but they gave us too many characters for it to be like that. Is my personal feelings. They gave us a full cast. They gave us more people outside the Shadowlands too, which potentially unnecessary, but they gave us this big cast of characters and did not develop them.
I feel that you like right there. I feel like they gave us the framework for all of these pieces, and the pieces were there, they just didn't move. There was like we printed the structure for this, and there was no fill. There was just the outline of who these characters could have been.
Yeah.
So like Neve got, I will say that I felt like Neve got some development, got some changes, and but like her whole thing with like Solmir, and then at the or Solomir, whatever his name is, at the end was they finally they're oh we saved everybody, and then he's like, hey, I'm gonna leave, this was great, thanks, and she goes, you know what, we do need some space, we were just like hanging out in the Shadowlands, we banged a couple of times, um bye. What was that?
I had
What was
so
the
much
point
beef
of
with
any
that.
of that?
Only for it to be like, only for it to then give us an epilogue where she immediately leaves to track him down. I was like, huh?
I think honestly she did that so she could write an epilogue. Is what it felt like. Oh my god, it was so bad. And then
And
like
then this is like jumping ahead, but then in the epilogue introduced a whole new area that she then also didn't explore. Like,
I mean, I don't think you need to describe a whole new area in the epilogue. Like if you're just gonna introduce it, fine. But it's just par for the course. Like
yeah,
we'll get there when it comes to like,
world
you know,
building.
world building and everything like that. But just the whole like I'm Solmir, and hey, we can transfer magic by kissing or physical touch, but kissing works so much better. Doesn't explain it one time, not a single time.
You
Why?
can't you can't
Like,
give me something that potentially cringy and not explain it.
listen, I'm all for writing while horny, but maybe give it some plot. Maybe give it some plot instead of just, hey, this is gonna make people a little spicy, little spicy, and then just not do anything with it.
Yeah, it
But
was.
yeah,
Anyways, I gave it half a point on character development because I felt like we got enough with Neve and Solmir for it to not be zero. And it's like a mirror of Red and Eamon from book one. We got enough of Red, not a lot of Eamon, for me to give it something, and then nothing of anybody else, which is kind of how I felt with this one
yeah.
too.
And remind me of your point when we come around, of your whole point of them being mirrored type thing.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, I also gave it a half point. I just felt like we got some more Neve. We got a little bit of Solmir, who we got none of in book one. I was like, okay, cool. And I just, the rest of the characters didn't develop at all. Zero.
yeah.
Zilch. So that's where I landed with that. Half point each here.
So we're off to a strong start.
Off to a
Half
strong
point.
start.
Next
I gotta try not to
category.
bash the book too much
I
right off the
know.
rip. Right off the rip.
I know. It's hard to be balanced, right? We have to figure out how to express our feelings.
Do you want to know
while
why?
also
Because I'm
being
upset. I'm
yeah.
upset.
I think this is a great way to lead into the second one, which is originality and creativity. We both thought it was an original story. We both thought it was creative, which is why I'm upset. I wanted more of the world, the story. I wanted more more. I wanted the uniqueness and the originality to be explored more.
Yeah, I think so. I also gave it 1 point for the originality, but in my head, I'm like, I feel like it should get a half point because, yes, it's piggybacking
Oh.
off the first book, but it's a carbon copy of the first book. A carbon copy, except it's
Mm.
Neve and Solmir underground.
Mm.
But it's the same thing. Hey, we're going to go do some stuff. We're going to go save the area we're in, and then we're going to save the world. And I
I
enjoyed the Shadowlands, but it was, I mean, it was kind of the same. It was kind of the same.
I have officially changed my mind, and I gave it a half point on originality and creativity.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Because I feel like in my head, I'm like, okay, I was giving it the same as the first book. I'm like, oh, it's the same story. But I'm like,
But wait a minute,
it's the same story. But
that then goes back to what we were talking about before too, that reading a book for its own. I mean, this is a duology, so we get to compare it to the first one, but it's like, wait, it doesn't just get one because the first one got one.
yeah. And I think a good sequel still feels like a different book. This felt like the same book,
It did.
but nah.
It felt like with slightly more, if I'm trying to say this nicely. It felt like with slightly more planning, this could have been one single book that was maybe 150, 200 pages longer. And it could have,
Yeah.
dang, author remasters the book. And instead of having kind of plotless side point of view chapters, just runs them both in one book and has them be a mirror of each other and alternates points of view, and they're both growing in the wood and in the Shadowland as the mirror.
Almost kind of like a tandem read, except the
that'd be
same book.
cool. Yeah,
That would be cool.
I feel like that would solve that would solve some problems. So we both gave it half point on character development, half point on originality and creativity, and then the next one, story and / wrap up.
Yeah, so we kind of deferred on this one. So you gave it a full point, and I want to hear your reasoning before I give mine here.
I gave it a full point because I felt like we got a clear conclusion and a clear closure.
Okay.
So that was my justification for giving it a single point. In my notes, I wrote that I had beef with the story because we had so many open questions. So maybe it doesn't deserve a full point. I wrote notes that said I have beef with this not answering all of our questions, and then I said, but it was clear and concise when it wrapped up. So
It's one of those things where I get more upset the longer I think about it. Like the more questions I have as we go along.
The more I'm talking about it, I'm like, do I want to give it a point?
Because I gave it a half a point. There were so many times that she had written the phrase, she didn't know how she knew, but she just did. What does that even mean? That's just so, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to roast the author because I did like the way she wrote, minus this phrase that she overkilled.
We read the books. We gave her the time of day. We went through them. So at the end of the day,
it's our review. I'm allowed to feel. What do you mean she didn't know how she did? She just did. This huge plot point, this whole magic thing, and you're just like, you know what? We're not going to explain this. We're just going to say that the character figured it out internally and call it good. The ending, I thought, was ridiculous, in my opinion. Ridiculous. It ended, but oh, by the way, you're dead without a soul, and you're living in the purgatory land, and everything's happy, and the magic is gone from the world, and that's good for the world. So thank you for that. And they're like, what if instead we came back to life without our soul? What does this mean for us? We'll find out together. They come back, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. It wasn't like in Supernatural when like they came back without a soul and all of a sudden they were like changed and like had no moral compass, everything. They were literally the same person except didn't have a soul, and it didn't change anything. Nothing.
Yeah, I think I'm changing my review, my score. I think I'm going down to half a point because I agree with you. It's just like so many questions. Like they come back without souls and that's it. We're not gonna like the whole. One of the big themes of the second book is what is a soul and how can you maintain your soul while you're gaining power.
Yeah,
that was like the whole theme, and then suddenly they don't have souls and we don't talk about it. We don't explore it. It's just.
And I think it's fair to have some open-ended questions and the story still be good because the characters aren't there and they don't know. That's fine. But this wasn't fine. This was not right.
It's different when it's an aspect
of
mystery.
Right.
When it's an aspect of mystery, it's a little different, right? When it's like there's some open questions and it's mysterious. Like that's okay. That's cool. But when it's like, I'm just not telling you. It's like.
Not telling me because the author you don't know, or because we were tired and stopped writing? What happened here? So that was a bummer. Half point. Again. And so let's give it up for world building and setting. What you got?
I went with a half point. And I went with a half point. This is tough. I think I gave it a half point here, and I had the most beef with world building in both books. World building was my biggest gripe. Open questions is a gripe. But
It's very
world building
important
was
too.
my biggest gripe because, and I'll put it this way: I gave book one a pass because book one had very simple locations. We had the woods and we had the castle, and that
Yes.
was, and we had the city in the woods, and it was like it was simple. We had those three locations. It didn't go super deep, but we had simple locations. I didn't need to understand them any more than I did. I had beef with this one because the characters like traveled around, and I don't feel like I understand like the world. Like we spent so much time in the Shadowlands, and the color of the Shadowlands was described a lot, but not the general landscape. And then the
Yeah.
characters left the woods and traveled to an island that I don't remember a single descriptive detail about. They were on the ocean. I don't have a setting in my head for this book. If
So
they drop me in the world, I'd be like, what world is this? Where are we at?
the island to me kind of just felt like in the first Harry Potter movie when Hagrid goes to like Harry in the lighthouse to tell him, "Hey, it's time to go to Hogwarts," and it's like lightning and stuff. Except in the book, there's a tavern that they like go to have a singular drink. So I'm thinking there's a hut. Walk, walk, walk to the tavern, drink, back to the monastery, back to the boat
Yeah,
on
that's
like a
literally all I
rock.
have. Yep.
And like the Shadowlands, this kind of irritated me the more I thought about it. So the Shadowlands, there's no color, black and white, right? Kind of a cool setting, except everything is made of bones, so everything's white, except for the stuff that's not, which is what? Rock?
Black?
So there's rock, which is black, and then there's bone, which is white. And then that's all we got. Everything's made of bone and it's super creepy. Big fan of the creepy everything's made of bone vibes, except everything's black and white, so it's just. It felt like they were trying to do like the whole underworld river Styx type thing, and it just.
Yeah.
Eh,
I
lackluster.
the hard part is that like I feel like this could be solved in like three sentences. They crested the ridge and they saw a sprawling landscape of dark tree. Like you could give us three sentences and I think I would have been like, "Oh, cool."
Now there's
Like
trees.
I have an image in my head. Like it could have been the same with the island. It could have been like we approached the shoreline and saw a small stone village, a monastery in the distance. Like then I would have been like, cool, I have a setting. It's like two sentences.
Yeah, I tried to give it more of a pass in the world in general because it felt like not old English, but old
Like
just like
medieval.
yeah, medieval where like there's a lot of distance between towns, so there's like lots of forests, lots of traveling, blah blah blah. But then even when we got to those areas, I'm like even the castle, we got like the garden with the monastery or the little monastery room in it, worship room,
Mm-hmm.
and a bedroom. Yeah, like yeah. What did I don't know.
It just didn't make sense. But we both gave it a half point.
Half point because we got to see some new stuff.
Yeah.
Pacing and
Pacing.
structure, I felt okay with it.
Yeah, me too. I wasn't bored. It it was very average, but it
Yeah.
like worthy of a point. It wasn't bad.
No, I didn't think so. I would agree with you there.
I
I don't
I
have much to talk about for it personally,
like I
but
said though, I did enjoy the pacing of the ending. I felt like the final progression was fast paced. The whole Neve in the Shadowlands officially becoming the Shadow Queen, them ending the Kings, the transition back, her and Red doing their thing. Like I felt like the pacing was good. I was like, oh, I want to see what's happening. Like I want to finish it.
that's true. I did give it a full point for pacing, although I felt like Red, her story was pointless. I felt like I didn't need more than you know, maybe 30 pages
Yeah.
for her, and we could have gotten the whole story out. Neve, I was interested in, things were happening, blah blah blah, but not so for Red for me. But I still give it the full point. But emotional impact, I I feel things, but it's not rage, disappointment at the book itself, not any of the words or the story, or the content or anything. So I gave it a 0 on the emotional impact front.
Yeah, I did the same.
Yeah,
Not much
and
else to say.
yeah, disappointing.
And then writing style and prose, gave it a point. Easy point. Book read smoothly. I didn't stumble over the words. I didn't feel like the sentences were cyclical, circular, and just repeating themselves, babe. Other than the one little, and I don't think this is a prose issue, but when you like how a lot of the time it was like she didn't know how she knew, she just knew. I didn't feel like that was a prose issue,
She used
but
it so often.
that was overused a lot. But I don't think it was a prose issue.
No, I think it was more of the engaging storyline type era. And you know what's
Yeah,
something I always like look for in books? Authors always have like key phrases or words that they use really often, like all the time. And
yeah,
hers was that like phrasing right there. And also, anytime a character like bit their lip, that was like her big thing she had to talk about.
yes,
And it's like, what? Why are we saying this so often?
yeah.
As well as like in Red Rising, he says bedlam like 100 million times. Love the book, but every time I see the word bedlam, I roll my eyes. What can you do? What can you do?
Yeah.
You find a fun word, I want to use it.
So next we have engaging storyline. Go on, Curtis. You rip the band-aid off. Uncork.
I it's just a carbon copy of the first book. Was it engaging for a bit? I enjoyed the ending, I guess. Kind of. I get what they were trying to do. Like you have a good and an evil and they cancel each other out and that like heals the rift, right? Cool, I get that. Except you cannot kill characters and bring them back to life anytime anybody dies. Everybody that has died, you brought back to life. There's no consequences. If there's no consequences, then
Oh
nothing means
yeah.
anything. Nothing means anything. And
Eric
like I
had
get it if it's
literally
like
no reason.
a Disney movie or if it's like that type of book. This isn't that type of book. You just didn't want to kill a character. You wanted everything to be hunky dory, and it wasn't hunky dory. It was just Dory, and I did not. Well, I don't watch Dory. It was not enough for me. I am sad. I gave it a half a point because we got the uniqueness of the Shadowlands, but and like I enjoyed Neve's story for a bit, but I felt myself reading just to read,
Yeah.
which makes me sad.
Yeah. Not like I'm reading because I'm so excited to see what's happening next, but like cool. I'm gonna finish this book because I finish books.
Yeah,
I gave it a half point as well. It's just missed big missed opportunity. Magic system wasn't explored well. Shadowlands weren't explored well. The story was engaging to a point, like you said, but then it was just, why are we not doing more? Why are we letting the story be sad and not making it be interesting?
she had the
Eric,
framework ready and just dropped it.
there was zero reason for Eric to come back to life. Eric,
So dumb. Oh, he lost his complete memory, but he's okay and fine, so we're gonna send him back home.
That was
Why?
I hate things that happen for no reason.
I didn't even
Like,
care about him to begin with.
yeah,
Why are
he
we
wasn't
bringing?
in this book at all. Why are we making this happen?
Lord, we brought back our friend. No, leave him dead.
Kill him dead.
Get
Burn
him.
him.
Do it. How do you feel about our meaningful themes and depth, Dakota? How are we feeling? Delve deep.
I gave it a half point because themes existed. There was not a lot of depth. Themes did exist. There was the savior complex between the sisters choosing to try and it explored the idea that they both had savior complexes because neither of them could just let their sister be where they chose to be. They had
Yeah.
to force themselves. Like, so there was a theme, a singular theme. There were a few themes.
Few
But
minor themes. Like I felt like they explained kind of like the two sides to every story thing. Like Red did her whole thing, and they hate Solmir and all this blah blah. And then we get Neve and Solmir's side, and it's like, well, I was actually trying to stop the end of the world type thing. So it's like,
yeah,
and he was the villain for Aemon because he killed girl I can't remember, and he was trying to like save her, or, like bring him down. It just they tried. It just was again the structure was there. They just dropped the ball on it.
yeah.
Rip.
But humbug.
So half a point for there.
Half. And then our last category, rereadability and lasting impact.
You already know, chat. You already know. 0. 0.
You know, we made a slight oversight. Books have a lasting impact if we're angry.
0. I agree with what you're going for.
I'm not arguing
resent
for it.
I reject your point.
I'm not arguing for it to be scored. I'm just saying that it's gonna have a lasting impact because every time I think about it, I'm be like,
listen, I own the book. I made the purchase. It's gonna stay on the shelf. It's just gonna be on an unimportant shelf, which I have. I have happy shelves and I have sad shelves. Sad shelf.
Sad shelf.
So what was our overall score here? I think
our overall score was 5.
5's all around, which isn't much lower than the first book, but it like feels lower in my heart.
I think I when I finished the book, I think I initially put it higher, and then the more I explored it and thought about how like it didn't diverge from the first book enough, the lower it fell on the scale for me.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, that was.
It makes sense that it got the same score because it was the same book.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's true.
So, Dakota, I think together we can say that this is not RSQ recommended.
Yeah, I would say that if you, no, you're right. It's not RSQ recommended. It doesn't get the RSQ stamp of approval.
It does not. No stamp. I think that if you want to try book 1 and this is something for you, you like this type of intro to fantasy, simple themes, you're here for the ride, and when you get off, you're like, that was enjoyable. I'm done now. Go for it. Read this book. Read For the Throne. Read the second one. But for avid readers and, people who are not new to fantasy, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I was gonna say a conditional recommendation of if you read book 1, read book 2, but I don't think I recommend it at all. I don't think I'm gonna say that. I don't think it's like if you read book 1 and you were like, I really like this. Okay, book 2 might pique your fancy, but if you're like us, where we read book 1, we were like mediocre. Just don't. I don't think you want to read book 2.
No, and I have a problem where I have to finish series. If I start it, I have to finish it, even if I'm upset with it. I have a problem.
We're committed.
We're committed, and commitment will be our downfall. Ba-da-bum.
Ba-ba-bum. All right. Well, there it was.
I got that off my chest.
Yep.
I feel better.
We gave it a 5. It was not an absolute banger. It is not RSQ approved.
No, it missed a lot of points. But you know what that means? We get to move on. And that is an important skill to have. Yeah. And here at RSQ, we can do that. We can move on. We can move on to what's next. We can look forward to what's upcoming while remembering what's behind us.
We can learn to love again.
We've learned from our mistakes, and that is... We didn't learn from our mistakes. We're still going to reread series all the way through, so you don't have to.
Yeah, that's what we do here at RSQ.
RSQ, here for you. All right.
Well, so stay tuned for our spinning of the wheel as we choose our next book. And as always, thanks for joining us. It's been a party. We're glad that we can read this book and tell you about it. So hopefully you don't feel the need to read this book.
Yeah. Stay seated while we get heated. We love rhyming. I do. Puns.
RSQ Rapper Side Quest.
Well.
Maybe
a different video. All right, y'all. See you next time on RSQ.
out.